What do you know about EBAC?
Well, as part of my role here in the college, looking at pathways for students to progress from Key Stage 3 into Key Stage 4, which involves them taking their options and choosing their GCSEs and their BTEC choices. It's crucial to have an in-depth knowledge of the EBAC and the way it's used by the government. And obviously, as we're aware, the EBAC is a performance measure, it's not a qualification in itself. So it's a suite of subjects that we would choose from, or students would choose from, and that would make up an academic profile that students would take.
Don't know about the EBAC, the English Baccalaureate. Well, the EBAC is a measure. It's not a qualification as such. It's just a measure for schools, really. It's a measure based on the curriculum on how many of a particular permutation of subjects a pupil does, and they are generally core subjects, so your sciences, your English and maths, humanities and foreign languages. That's what I know about it.
Well, I know that it's an English baccalaureate, and what it does is it gets students to make sure they're taking subjects like English, maths, science, humanities and a foreign subject, so they've all got to do that same route of subjects as opposed to the traditional GCSE route, which is a much more free choice of lots of different options.
Basically, it's a performance measure put in for schools. It's awarded for students who get like a C grade or above to basically for the core academic subjects that the government have classed as core academic subjects, such as your English, your sciences, your maths and stuff like that. Basically, it's not a qualification in itself, but it's a way of getting students to take more of the more traditional subjects, if that makes sense.
How has EBAC affected your subject?
Well, personally, I suppose it could take away from the numbers, if students are forced to do a history, a language, obviously they have to do a maths and science and English at the moment, but if they're forced to do those other subjects, then they might not pick photography as another option, and then obviously it could decrease numbers on the photography courses, which would mean my classes would be smaller, and ultimately, if I don't get enough students, then I haven't got a job.
It could finish it.
Really?
Yeah, because what the government want is to treat computer science as a science. So they want to bring that, and they want our mindset to include that in what we think of as science. But ICT as a subject, they've got plans to scrap it, which again I think would be a real shame. As an ICT teacher, obviously I'm biased, but I do honestly believe that there is a place for teaching students how to use computers separately, well, perhaps not separately, but in addition to learning how to code and program.
In this college, I think the creative subjects are supported in this college, but I think as both the message from the government and the way that pressure is now on for Ofsted to look at schools and how they offer the EBAC and look poorly on schools if they don't offer it, I think there is this sort of top-down pressure to encourage students to move away from those creative subjects, because the message is if it's not included in that group of subjects, they can't be any good. That's the message we're worried about. So I think we've certainly seen a drop in numbers choosing at GCSE, and then that will then have a knock-on effect at A-level. So our numbers have reduced, and we can't guarantee there are lots of factors. We can't guarantee that's to do with EBAC, but it may well be because there's that perception that it's not going to be as valuable as some of the other subjects.
I think, apart from the numbers of students that could take the subject, which would be reduced, I think there'll be a mixed response. That we will have fewer students taking the subjects. However, the students that do choose that subject, I would argue that they would be that much more enthusiastic and passionate about the subject, because if they only have two choices, they will only choose the ones that they really love, they really want to be doing. So from that point of view, I think it would be a good thing that you're really going to get passionate students about those particular subjects that really want to engage in those subjects. Of course, the danger and the flip side is for the subjects that they would have to take if a school goes down a full EBAC route, is to try and engage students into taking maybe French or German, that they might not be interested in at all. How do we engage those students? How do we make that subject desirable for them, and so they can see the value of it, and trying to help them engage and be able to reach their potential in that subject. But as much as we say that, will their potential in a modern foreign language or a humanities subject, will it ever be as much as what they may be able to do in a creative subject? And this is why tailoring a curriculum to the individual and trying to make it as personal as possible and individual to meet the students' needs and their future aims and aspirations has to be the goal, I believe, in education.
What are the benefits and drawbacks to EBAC?
Benefits and drawbacks of EBAC. Well, I suppose from a general perspective, if I think about it from a whole school perspective or from a national perspective, there's going to be lots of students doing subjects they may not want to do. There's going to be schools which are probably going to be struggling to find staff to fill those subjects. I think, you know, I'm a history teacher, and I know for a fact there's lots and lots of people who love history and want to do a degree in history and potentially want to be a history teacher. I don't think recruiting history teachers will necessarily be a problem, but MFL, French, German, that's going to be a big problem, I think, for schools. You know, schools which are in beautiful areas of the country or in London or in good schools probably won't find it that hard to recruit. Schools out here might find it much more tricky to attract people to come to live in North East Essex, 2 hours from London, etc., etc. So that'd be a big challenge.
Well, I suppose the first thing I would say is that I understand why the government was concerned that some students were not being challenged as much as they might be in their curriculum. But I also understand why schools did not challenge them, because schools are judged on the results of their students. And so at one time, certain subjects like BTEC science, vocational qualifications counted as equivalents to GCSEs. And schools tended to get better results with them. So they tended to funnel students into those courses rather than picking up perhaps GCSE French or German. So I understand that the government felt that this was not right, that we needed to have higher expectations of our children and we mustn't shut down the opportunities for them. And in that respect, I agree with them. However, what they have done, I think, is not taken what I think should be the rule in every school, which is the right course for the right student. And this new ruling of theirs, which all of our Year 7s quite likely to have to do all of those subjects, including a modern foreign language, I don't think is achievable and I don't think it's right. Why don't I think it's right? Because it is an accountability measure. It's not for the students. And nobody can tell me that a young person getting a G in French is going to open up opportunities for them that are better than getting a distinction in media studies. So I think it's a nonsense. And the trouble is, what happens when politicians get hold of education, it becomes about what they think education should be rather than what the young people need and what educationists who've studied at university themselves, they're experts, should follow. And if we actually stop this nonsense around accountability measures and concentrated on right courses for right students, taking into account the passions of young people, then that would be a lot better. You as a head, I will never ever put an accountability measure before a student.